Hello. So, for those who don't know, I've been running a Ask FM, which is a website where people can leave anonymous questions. It seems to mostly be used for people to like write to 14-year-old girls and just be like, "Get your tits out," and then the girls are like, "Oh no, go away," and like, "Oh, what's your favorite color?" And people are like, "Oh, I don't have a favorite color." So this is like it's a lot of dumb shit. But I've been using it as a format to answer a lot of questions, sort of daily. Probably get about 12, 15 a day. Don't answer all of them. Some of them pretty stupid, but just vegan related questions. And what I decided to do was just run answering them all over sort of today. I've been doing this as a YouTube video where I'm just going to work my way through them. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because I think to a lot of people I come across as angry, and maybe that's because they can't hear my voice. I can get angry, but usually I'm just sort of like, if I'm rude, it's because I'm tactical. I just want to sort of like offend people into being vegan, as opposed to like me sitting there getting angry. I'm just sort of like, if I piss them off a bit, it'll work. So, okay, real quick. Let's work our way through the questions from the bottom up. What have I got here? And they're real mixed questions. Sometimes it's like, is whey powder vegan? It's like, no, it isn't. And then explain what it is. And sometimes it's like, how should I feel about my mum saying this to me or whatever. So it's always an interesting mix. Some of them are like a bit irrelevant, but it's a good little stimulus from the brain. What, in your opinion, this is the first question, what, in your opinion, is the most successful method of activism for the animals? The animals. Flyers, marches, YouTube, vids, ... question mark. Okay, I think that's a really good question. It's sort of saying, like, what is the most efficient way to spend my time if I want to help, the animals? And I guess they mean non-human animals, but it might mean everyone in the sense that human animals. That's a good. If people aren't making that distinction yet, I think it's really good to add that into your vocabulary, calling it human animals and non-human animals when you talk about that divide, because it's so easy without that language to elevate humans into something where we're not animals, even though we shit, piss, sleep, have sex, reproduce. Like we are animals. We are in animal bodies. So when you say for the animals, I'm going to take that as all the animals. So for the humans and the non-human animals. The human animals and the non-human animals. There, caught myself out. What, in your opinion, is the most successful method? The method. Okay, flyers. You don't know. You just don't know. I've just actually cycled back from sort of like a feed people vegan food sort of thing. Just been like volunteering, doing a bit of serving and cooking. And the people that I hang out with there, they do a lot of flyers. And the question I've asked them is like, how do you know how many end in a bin? Like, how do you know how many people go vegan? And one of the beautiful things about Twitter is I really keep track, and I like go back, and I've got like a proper list of everyone that I've helped. So I know that I've helped over 3,700 people become vegan in the last year and a half, and that's not bragging. Like I feel like I should do a lot more. I see some of like people like Gary Yourofsky, and it's just like fucking, we are not worthy. We're not worthy. It's like people who do that. That's a Wayne's World reference. I kind of half-assed it, so it might not have made sense. So flyers, you don't know how productive they're going to be. They cost money. I imagine a lot of them end up in a bin. I don't like personally. I wouldn't read a flyer. I'd say don't waste your time on flyers. And the kind of people who, my experience of like being given flyers in town is like, oh, go away. Like I'm just in. Maybe because I'm, I hate those sort of charity people and people just trying to bother you in town while you're doing your thing and get eye contact with you and be like, hey. And I usually don't take them. Because I'd prefer to be one of those like happy people. Like, hang on, one of those people who comes off a little bit grumpy but doesn't waste the paper. I'd prefer for it to only be taken by people who are genuinely interested. But people are like, oh, okay then. But it's so much better than being like, oh yeah, sure, thanks. That's really interesting. And then you stick it in the bin. These answers, because I'm talking, might be a lot longer than I don't know. Even when I type them, I type mini essays. I get well into it. So yeah, flyers. Fuck flyers off. Great if you're doing it. if that works for you and it makes you happy, but just the reasoning for it is you don't know how many people you're reaching. And this is some sort of evaluation form, or there's some kind of way for them to check in with you afterwards. Then maybe do it. And if you're getting like 100% hit rate, like you're giving out 2,000 flyers, you turn 2,000 people vegan with them, and like you're being able to evaluate that process, great. But I just say the uncertainty of it isn't worth the cost and the time involved. But some people just like to be out there, sort of like, letting people know that it's good if you can start up conversations with people. I think if you like, the leaflets can lead to just people going, oh, what's veganism then? And you explain to them, they're like, oh, I never heard of that. And those conversations in some ways are more useful than the flyers, and the flyers are just a means to that. Marches, I've been on a couple marches. I think it's nice to meet other people, like have a sense of... I think marches are good, but they're not the most effective method because... I think it's like Babaram Das, if you ever got into that guy. He talks about it as whenever you create a resistance, you're creating an opposite force resistance. So as soon as you're out there going, shame on you, then there's people out there going, oh, shame on them for doing... And you just create hostility. So you have to be quite technical. A good example of that, actually, is like when it's done bad and when it's done right. I've been following the Direct Action Everywhere group, with sort of like what they've been doing and they've been putting out, and they film a lot of their stuff. I think that's another thing. If you're going to do a march, film it, because then you've got it, it can reach an even bigger audience, and that footage can be used elsewhere. Like I might end up using it to create some good vegan propaganda with. But like a good example is like Direct Action Everywhere. They had like 7 people in like some restaurant where there was like about 11 people dining in the middle of the day. And they're sort of like, oh, shame on you for eating chicken. Like, don't you realise that's an animal? Which is fair enough. I love the compassion of those people. They're really going for it. But it's just so tactically weak because there was almost like more of them than there were people that they were telling it to in an environment where they weren't ready to receive that information while they were in the middle of it. But then on the same end, Direct Action Everywhere also did, they're called like DAX or something, DX. I don't know. They've kind of got their own logo. Look them up on YouTube. Check them out. They're kind of like, I think they're still like progressing and finding their voice a little bit, because they'll do stuff like that isn't so effective. But then occasionally they'll do one that's really interesting, like one where they had some like portable speakers and they played the slaughterhouse noises. I think it was like in a KFC or something, or it was like some American thing. So I don't know, like Wendy's. I don't know Wendy's like KFC or whatever. I've not been to America yet. I'd like to go. But and I thought that was really interesting because everyone had to like sit there and eat this stuff, knowing full well like the pain that he'd gone through, because the sound was... And that, when you create like a good sense of theatre or an interesting like sort of performance art with it, that actually gets stuck in people's heads or creates like a really interesting scene for other people to watch, it's good. But at the same time, whatever you do, make it so that you can film it like, it's almost, I think filming it and putting it on the internet, if you've got a good platform for it, it just reaches other people, can actually be more important than the effect that you have on the march itself. Then we get to YouTube vids. I think like I reckon Gary Yourofsky, and like I'm completely assuming this, but he goes around the country giving all these lectures and stuff, and sometimes he's like supply teacher, so he's getting paid for it, and sometimes he's like guest lecturer, like for some philosophy or whatever at some college. American college, our university. And, I think like, but the thing is, he filmed one of his speeches and it went viral, and it's like, it was something like 1 in 10 people in Israel ended up seeing his speech when they translated it to that to Hebrew. So, it's probably had more effect filming his speech than him just going around. He's kind of a mug for not like putting it up on his own YouTube channel originally right from the start, because he probably would have earned about like, sort of £4,000 or £5,000 just like from ad revenue for that to like help fund what he does. But whether that is in dollars, like I don't know, like $8,000-9,000. I might have got that wrong. I'm not sure on the YouTube stats either. But anyway, like the point is like the lectures he was giving, they only reach the people they reach, and a percentage of those people each time become vegan. But if you can turn it into a good YouTube video, then you're just like... The other thing is, if with the right tags and stuff, you're going to have people who are... He's got it down as or someone else put up as the best speech ever. I don't think he wrote that. He's not quite that... he's not an egocentric guy, he's quite humble, I think, in his whole approach. He's just very forthright with it. And, yeah, Like, the YouTube video made more of a difference than that thing, and it's called Best Speech Ever. And people are just like, oh, best speech ever, what's that about? And they watch it. And I've sent that to, like, there was a couple, I sent it to everyone on my contacts list, like, the year that I saw it, like, when it got to, it was like a Christmas present. I was like, Merry Christmas, like, here's a video that might change your life. And I bumped into so many people who didn't respond to the email, but they were like, oh, you sent me that email and I watched that video and I'm vegan now. And it's like, no, and it's like some, like, old friends and stuff, and, like, colleagues, and some people wrote back, like, oh, fuck off, don't send me this kind of stuff, you know, but... and like, then again, Earthlings, I think, is probably responsible. Earthlings, Vegucated, Forks Over Knives. Documentaries are definitely the most powerful tool, I think, that there is. And even films that aren't necessarily vegan, like Chicken Run, Babe, what's that one? Super Size Me, I think, like, just open people's mind up to the fact that, like, these people making food do not give a fuck about the people eating it. So, I think, like, look at any sort of revolution in history, like, it's the art on the walls that makes a difference. It's, like, where the most people can see it. So, graffiti the billboards, you know, create YouTube videos, and try not to become too incestual with it, where you're kind of like, it's all just like vegans talking to other vegans. You've got to be like finding people they don't know what the word vegan means, and just having those conversations with them. Or people who like think they know what it means, but they're like, oh, chip's vegan. And you're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I could probably do that then. Like, they've just never thought about it before, you know? So I'm going to say, like, viral videos, marketing, like, just look at how, my whole thing is like, McDonald's is incredibly good at marketing itself. So just copy them, do what they do, but just do a vegan version of it. That's one of the reasons why my logo is, you know, it looks a little bit like a McDonald's sign, but it's different enough so they can't sue me. If they knew who I was. Okay, fuck, that was 12 minutes. Okay, question number 2. I am in high school, that's America high school, and vegan. I'm in high school and vegan. What can I do to spread the word and make people my age realise that a plant-based diet is not as difficult as they think? Yeah, you're at high school, so that's that. I think that's that kind of age where you're between sort of, is that like 12 and 16 or something? Because you have like middle school in America, so don't you? So people are at an age where they're starting to rebel against their parents a bit, and I was talking to someone at this thing where I was cooking for a bunch of people tonight. It was cool, man. I started talking to some people and talking to these like older vegans. They've been like vegan like 40 years, and they're like, oh yeah, our son's vegan and the other one's gone vegetarian, and it's like a little vegan family. And they go, oh, he makes YouTube videos, and I was like, what's his name? And they said his name, and I was like, oh my god, I watch him, and started like talking to them about what their garage looked like. It was funny. But they didn't want me to talk about it like publicly because apparently he gets embarrassed. Like he doesn't even know that they know that he makes YouTube videos. He like does it kind of in secret, which I thought was cool. I probably shouldn't be talking about it. But what they brought up was the fact that it's kind of interesting. Like with the other son that went vegetarian, is that it is some people can't handle the peer pressure. You know, and peer pressure is that thing where loads of people go, why are you doing that? And like, some people just don't want to be center of attention. Some people don't want to be different. I've always been someone who's like enjoyed being different. I quite enjoy being center of attention. So if someone's like, why are you wearing those shoes? I'd just be like, and some people are like, oh my god, they've noticed my shoes. Oh no. But like, I'd prefer to like have a conversation about the shoes. Shoes is a weird example, but it comes down to courage, I think, at the end of the day. And like, there's so many insecure kids, like female, male, like the whole thing is like everyone's just like looking around like, don't bully me. And most of the people are bullying people are doing it because they don't want to be bullied. So it's a really weird age where even on a very small level, everyone's like, oh, you've got a haircut. And they're like, oh my god, he noticed I've got a haircut. I feel like a twat. And they're like, ah. So it's that weird age, okay? So I think if you want to spread the message, it's difficult because you've got to find the people that, I'd say if you're going to get really tactical about it in your school, what you want to do is you want to find the kids that are trendsetters. This is like some, what's his name? Melvin someone. Is that his name? This guy wrote a book called, I don't think his name is Melvin. Shit. It'll come to me. I'll look it up while I talk. But he wrote a book called The Tipping Point. Oh, what's my password? The Tipping Point, and let me get it up. The Tipping Point, and he's like quite an interesting guy. You know, he does his research and kind of a Malcolm Gladwell. What did I say, Melvin? Get out with an M, I suppose. Yeah, his whole thing is like trendsetters. How does it work? Like, how do we get to a tipping point where something can go from not fashionable to a certain group of minority doing it, like veganism, or like it could be like people wearing a certain brand of shoes or something, and it takes off in a rough area of New York, and then suddenly everyone wants to copy it, or like, you know, how does ripped jeans suddenly take off? Like suddenly everyone's wearing ripped jeans. Like, yeah, we've always done this. So the one thing that pisses me off fashion, well, not pisses me off. I'm not angry when I do these. Is what they call mason jars. Like, since Instagram came around, everyone drinks out of mason jars now, and it's just like, get a glass. Why are you doing that? Because I think it started out like, oh, we're recycling, and that's one of those things where the people recycling started out as like the cool people, where everyone's like, oh, we should be recycling like them, and now you've just got people going out specifically buying mason jars to take photographs of on Instagram, so they like fit in with that crowd. So what you've got to do is like try and if you want to get like just fundamentals like of how you make a difference in a microcosm like a high school or secondary school, is find the cool kids, the ones that other people are going to be copying. Like if they buy a jacket, other kids are going to want that jacket or whatever, and just influence them, man. Like, be real fucking sneaky about it. Like, just be some Machiavellian dude who's like you know, just like working it. And one of the best things to do is like make it sound like it's their choice. You just go, oh, you already know it's weird to drink milk and like dairy, right? Like, don't say, oh, you need to know this. Just say, you must already know this. Because people are like, no, I didn't know that yet. And you're like, oh, did you not know all about how it's like weird? Surely you know it's weird to drink another species of milk. This is manipulative shit. But you've got to remember that all these companies are doing the exact same thing in the opposite direction. So I think we can... again, like I talk about Gary Orosky a lot because he's just like a big inspiration, but I'm not sure. His whole thing is don't be a politician or whatever. I'm like, let's be a sneaky bastard about it sometimes, because they've got that on their side, so we can do it too. Like, we're promoting the truth, but we can use sneaky techniques to get people to that point. So, yeah, find the kids that are going to influence people. Maybe you're one of them. And the other thing is just be cool. And I don't mean like be Fonzie or like, you know, like wear shades indoors. My idea of what's cool. It was really interesting. Did you see that film, 21 Jump Street, the first one, where they go into school and they're really like worried that it's like, oh, we should be one-strapping, and like, if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And they get there and all the kids are like, oh, you're homophobic. That's really horrible. And like, yeah, we recycle, and you know, and it's just like this generation gap where they're like, oh, the kids are actually sort of. They care. They're like, it's cool to care now, and like it used to be cool not to care. So I think just try and make like watch 21 Jump Street and be like the kids in that. Where it's just like, whoa, you don't recycle? What the fuck? Well, like it's not cool to not give a fuck, and just give it that image, because veganism is a cool thing, you know. Like most people can't handle it. It just shows you're thinking more than stupid people are. Make it cool, and but the main way to be cool, not like wearing shades or whatever, 21 Jump Street, is just be confident. I think if you can just be like, I know that this is right, and you can say whatever you want to me, and you don't even need to preach to other people then, and like, just get fit as well. Like if you get fit, or like if you know you get a nice girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, just get with good looking people. This is how, like, I mean, this sounds crass, but this is how what influences people. People like. Because you know that thing, we ape each other, like humans ape each other just because we're apes. Like, we'll look at, so like dance moves, they take off where people are like, oh, that guy does that sort of spin thing when he dances. I might try and pull that off. And then like, next thing you know, everyone's dancing like John Travolta or whatever. John Travolta. I'm starting to feel a bit old. That's starting to happen to me where all my references are sort of, like, people are like, oh, don't you know who Nicki Minaj is? And I'm like, no, who's that? And they're like, oh my god, you do know. I had this girl tell me that it was weird that I didn't know what a she didn't know what a VHS was, and she was like, oh, like, some sort of weird tape thing. Like, and she was like, oh, you were born before the internet. So yeah, you're young, be sexy, be cool, be confident, be vegan, and, just make it like the in thing. And also just make like, I think it's bullying. Everyone's sort of bullying each other on a sort of insecure level, even if they're just going, oh, you've got that bag, or like, oh, you're wearing this, you know, it's all that sort of stuff. Oh, your hair looks like that. I think it's okay to bully people a little bit. I'm just going to say that. Like, if people are eating animals, just be like, oh, you still eat animals. Like, do you know what I mean? Just put it up like that and go, oh, haven't you heard that whole thing about milk? And they'll be like, oh, what thing? Because most people are just like mildly brainwashed by passively watching adverts and being, oh, yeah, I'm drinking milk's good for bones. That's what I used to think when I was a vegetarian. Like, fucking idiot that I used to be. Okay, next question. We're 20 minutes in. Fuck, this is going to be like an hour long. Why did Steve Jobs die? Why did Steve Jobs die? Well, it happens to us all. He does that really good speech about how like death benefited him, because like once you know, like the Roman soldiers used to have like high up soldiers or whatever, they used to employ someone just to like stand next to them and every couple of minutes just whisper in their ear and they go, memento mori. Well, they're doing like Latin, memento mori. and the whole, that means like remember death. And the whole idea was like, just don't stop your momentum, you know, like just keep going, like life is short. And so Steve Jobs died because he was a human, and that's going to happen to you and everyone. We're all in a queue. That's going to happen one day. I don't want to get too nihilistic about it, but there's a liberation in that. And that's what Steve Jobs talks about, is like nihilism, being aware of your own mortality will liberate you in life, because you... it's one of the things like in yoga, you do this position like the corpse, where you usually end with it. And the idea is to like just blank out your mind. It'd become as corpse-like as possible. Slow your breath right down. And the whole thing is there's something liberating in that, where you just go, one day I'll be dead and all this shit doesn't matter. So why worry about it so much now? Why not just solve it? Why not just enjoy my life? So if you haven't seen that talk by Steve Jobs, I'll put a link to it in this video. But it's a really good, I think it was like a commencement speech. Somewhere like, I think it began with a C. I'm not up to date with colleges, and somewhere important, somewhere prestigious apparently. So yeah, Steve Jobs. But why did he die? There's a really good video, actually. Let me just get up the title of it, because I'll tell you it, but I'll also link it as well. Steve Jobs die. It's not going to be the first one that comes up, though, is it? Why did Steve Jobs die? That's what someone's actually asked me. Maybe they've seen it and they're just testing me to see if I've seen this video. If you're doing that, just like, why be sneaky? It's yeah, John McDougall, really good advocate for veganism. Like, I really like his talks. Some of his he knows his stuff, man. He really he sort of read all the textbooks and memorized them on some like other level. And he does a whole talk on how Steve Jobs died and why Steve Jobs died. And you can actually trace back the tumor that he had, like the cancer, because you can look at the cells and how they've grown over time. So you can pinpoint sort of the date as to when the cancer started. And he had like a rare form of cancer, from what I remember. And basically, it all comes back to when he was a young kid and he got his first break. As you know, he was doing something with like microchips and like installing like real like hardware level understanding of computers. Where he was seeing how, like, you know, probably how it gets made, where you can, it was at that age where, like, to create a computer, you just bought bits from other people who made bits, and then you assembled them, and then you had a computer. And then it was sort of like a bit more of a free market, before Mac and PC became sort of the main two. So yeah, and he was doing that, and he was exposed to stuff that, like, just the same as asbestos or something like that will cause you to die over time because it lodges in you. He was exposed to something, and they can trace it back to this moment where he was doing that job. It grew inside him, and one of the ways that he managed to stay alive for so long was he was it's documented in his biography that sometimes he ate fish and stuff. And I'm going to put that down to Peter Singer, who is he's like a sort of vegan advocate, but he's got this whole thing called like the Paris exemption or something, where like he's like, oh, if you're in a fancy restaurant and they're serving fish or whatever, you might as well eat it. Which I just think is like, he's on Gary Rofsky's wall of shame. I don't know if it's specifically for that, but just like seeing him have this whole Paris exemption, it's just like, it's really cool that he wrote all these books and inspired all these people. But I think one of the reasons Steve Jobs wasn't completely vegan all the time was because he read the books of Peter Singer. And that's just a hunch. I don't know that. it makes sense that sometimes he'd like at some event they'd be handing out fish, and he's documented as having ate it a bit. There's some cool stories about Steve Jobs though. Like, he'd go into like sort of like a really sort of cheap restaurant and ask for a mango smoothie, and they didn't serve mango smoothies, and he was like just sort of that powerful a dude. Like, they'd rush out and find a way to have a mango smoothie ready for him. He just order things that weren't on the menu, which is awesome. But Steve Jobs was mostly a fruitarian. And had I think he had a lot of carrot juice, and but the rest of the time he was fruitarian. Lost a lot of weight probably through like the cancer treatment later on in life. Became quite like gaunt, I suppose you could say. And yeah, like what a cool life. Like, maybe he died a bit short, but what an awesome life. Legacy. I'm using his technology right now. He's the reason that Mac, as far as I understand it, still after his death, don't use stearic acid that is sourced from animals in computers. Because you can get it from both plants and animals, but it's kind of cheaper to take it as a waste material from the meat and dairy industries, as some sort of waste byproduct. So I think that's cool. Like, that's one of the reasons why I'll always buy Mac stuff to do the work I do. Partly because I know it's a bit more expensive, and it's like it's not necessarily the best for the job, but I just do it on the basis that Steve Jobs was pretty much vegan and he didn't put animal products in the stuff, so I think that's cool. So why did he die? He got cancer from mucking about with computers in an unsafe environment as a young man. And fruitarianism and sort of a form of slightly lax veganism is what probably kept him alive for that long. Like, his diet really sustained him, but it was a rare and very destructive form of cancer that he had. I think it was in his pancreas. But watch the video that I'll link to, and you can get all the information a bit more firsthand. Okay, next question. 26 minutes in. Do you want to live a long life, or is that unimportant? Fuck, that's heavy. I think here's the thing, right? This is the thing, is that I could die tomorrow, and I just don't want to have any regrets in my life, in terms of the fact that every time I'm given a choice, I do not necessarily the easy thing or the thing that has the consequences that's going to work. I do the thing that's right in the moment. So I don't get... It's not like... This is a stupid question, because it's like, which one do you want? Obviously, I'm going to aim for the long life, but try and make that life... I think important is a weird way of putting it. I think all our lives are equally important and unimportant. I mean, we're just like on this sort of blue blob floating in space together, a bit lost. Woo! And yeah, that's what's going on. So let's not get into this whole important head trip, because as soon as you start thinking you're important, you start drinking coffee and going to meetings and becoming a careerist, and you just become an arsehole. So I'm all about, like, let's aim for unimportance, but let's make a difference in other people's lives. It's not... The aim isn't to make me the most important person in the world, because that's like some egocentric way of living. A long life is good. I watched my grandpa die last year. He lived as good as life as anyone could, really. Died with his family around him. And it was a real reality check, seeing him in those final moments where it just got to the point where, like, couldn't give him water anymore, and he was just drying up, and just... And it was quite peaceful. And it was just a reminder that, like, maybe when we get to that age, like, if death is a part of life. Just as stressful as it was once that we were born, like, that would have been like, oh my god, I got to come out of this womb. Like, we've got to just let our bodies go again and just return back into that, like water out of the cup, getting poured back into the ocean. Just like, shit, now what happens? So, and I imagine there is, like, it probably feels like nothing. That energy goes back round. I'm sort of answering a different question now as to, like, what my opinions on death are. Don't worry about dying is sort of the message, though, because it's going to happen eventually anyway. Obviously, later is better, but do what is right is more important. I suppose it comes down to martyrdom, that question. Like, would I die for a cause? Getting to, like, call it the vegan jihad instead of vegan revolution. Jihad actually means, like, a personal struggle. I think a lot of people don't know that. It's always like, oh, the jihad of the Muslims, like it's some sort of holy crusade, but actually just means, like, the personal struggle of an individual. What do you think of Alpro? Yeah, they make some alright yogurts. Yeah, I think they've got, like, they're sort of owned by the same company. There's that do milk and stuff. So it's one of those things where by buying those products instead of those products, they're going to start making more of one or the other. But it's that thing where all the money goes back to the same pot. Let's bash through these a bit quicker. Is speciesism inherent or learnt? Ah, shit, that's going to take a while to answer. I've got to think the answer to this one. Is speciesism inherent or learnt? Well, first of all, I don't think like really an understanding of death or abuse or oppression is necessarily inherent within us. I think like a child might stroke a guinea pig too hard and like pop its head and like its eyeballs come out to get graphic with it, and just because they love it so much, but they don't understand, you know. Or like I've killed animals as a child. Like there was, my dad made this little swimming pool and it had tadpoles in it, and one day it was a real sunny day, and did I say swimming pool? I mean like a mini pond. It was like a tiny, it was the shittest pond ever, basically. It was about like a metre by a metre tops. It was made out of like an old tub, and he just put it in the ground, and he was like, oh, we'll put tadpoles in it, and we watched frogs spawn and tadpoles, and then one day as a kid, when I was probably like 7, possibly younger, 6, whatever, possibly older, I could have been like 10, which is pretty embarrassing. But I just saw that the water had got real low, and the tadpoles were getting to this point where they were like swimming on top of each other, and it was like this real shallow water. And I thought, oh, I'll fill it up. So I went and got the hose, because we used to muck around with the hose in the back garden. Nice, that big sort of farmhouse thing. And sprayed it in there, but it just came out so hard that all the tadpoles just went all out the edges because it was such a small pond, and they all died. And I just remember being really upset that I'd killed them, but that's a different thing, isn't it? Like, I wasn't aware of the fact that it was going to kill them that made me upset. But would I have been more careful if it had been like another kind of animal? Do you know what? I was pretty upset that I killed those tadpoles, like, because I was trying to put them back in a pond and they just gone everywhere. I sprayed like them really hard out the edge. They just flew out the edge, and they went like all around these sort of plants and stuff. And I was trying to find them and put them back in, and I could see they went swimming again. It's like stressful as a kid, man, but like I just felt like, oh, I've killed these animals. They never got to like get to the next stage and like their little mini evolution into you know, the next part of them being that animal. So I felt bad about it, you know, but that's because I was brought up vegetarian. I thought it was bad to kill things. People develop different stories. So I was hanging out with this this horse rider farmer guy who's pretty like backwards, and he's like and he was stoned at the time. Like, this random bike ride, ended up just hanging out with this guy that I met in the park, and I wasn't high, I was just sort of watching him, and he like came over to me, and he's this weird guy, and he was like, oh, you see them over there, like they're the seagulls that are over there, like you can see which one's a woman and which one's a bloke, because the bloke won't carry no sticks. And I was like, oh, all right, that's how he talked, right? And I was like, oh, you like seagulls then? And I'm always trying to like put in a vegan conversation. He's already gone in there with the animals, and I'm asking him what he does and talking to him about dairy farming and how much money he makes. And he doesn't get that I'm sort of like, I'm interviewing him basically for my own little vegan knowledge. And he got this whole thing where it was like, it was good to shoot certain animals and bad to shoot other ones. He's like, oh yeah, I fucking hate like grey squirrels, mate. We shoot grey squirrels. They're rats. They're rats. And I was like, what about red squirrels? And he's like, no, I love red squirrels. Like, if someone put a gun to a red squirrel, I'd shoot them. I'd fucking shoot a red squirrel. I'll kill you, mate. I'd point my gun at him and be like, put your gun down. We only shoot the grey one. And it's really interesting because he's got this cultural value that like the grey ones have come from another culture and they've like wiped out the reds. So he's obviously got this thing for like the underdog of the red squirrels. So I think we learn the stories that give us different values of different animals, but I don't think we even, when we say inherent, like we're not even aware of the fact that we can die when we're a child. Like I definitely remember this one's quite heavy about death, isn't it? I remember just being in like top bunk bed and like I just sort of being like to my dad, I think I understand death now. Like we're all gonna, like, it's gonna happen to me, isn't it? He's like, yeah, that's right. And I just remember being like, shit. And it's like, this was just like a couple of years ago. It's just, yeah, I just remember that moment. I think everyone can kind of remember that moment where they just like really understood death. So I don't think you can understand oppression of other animals until you understand those things. So speciesism is like a proposition that needs other bits of information to build into it. So you can't really call it inherent. It's not like a reflex, like you put your hand in fire and it hurts and you pull it away, or you cry when you're angry. I cry when I'm angry. Let's keep going. 34 minutes. This is. I'm gonna keep typing these from now on, like rambling even more. Have you read Matt Ball's Accidental Activist? And if so, what's your opinion on his approach to advocating veganism? I haven't. I probably should. I'm gonna look that up now. I'll buy it. I'll get on I'll look on. I'll probably download it for free. Because I'm an arsehole like that. It's sort of like stealing, isn't it? I'll check that one out. Thank you very much for the recommendation, and I might let you know in a future one of these. I might do a review on it if it's good, or if it's rubbish, or I've got an opinion on it that's worth sharing. I don't know. I feel like I should skip over these questions. There's this woman who doesn't like giving me questions anonymously called Deanna, and she's always asking me about like medical stuff. And I really enjoy them because they get me thinking. They're always like quite complex questions where there's no sort of right or wrong. But I'm just not going to include them in this. So sorry, Diana. I'll answer you via. I'll sit and type those ones up, but for the benefit of everyone else now, I'll keep it all vegan related because that's what we're doing. Do you think being vegan is an effective boycott, or is it more to do with showing solidarity with non-human animals and living close to your morals? I'm probably gonna have to read that again, but just no. I think it's, even though it's multiple choice. Do you think being vegan is an effective boycott, or is it more to do with showing solidarity with non-human animals and living closer to your morals? Yeah, I'd say it's all of those things. Like, it doesn't have to be just like any of those, but I'd say it's also more than that. It's the next step for the evolution of human consciousness. It's just going to mean like the world that our children grow up potentially could be better. Like, or whenever we start to get to a tipping point with veganism, like just quality of life's going to improve. People are going to be less out for themselves and more altruistic as communities, which is going to change everything. So it's this big picture, but it's also to do with like health, biology, like ecology, psychology, and yeah, it's also there for the animals. It's the non-human animals. That's what they wrote in the question. Nice one for doing that. Respect to the people with that vocabulary. Showing solidarity with them. I just think it's that thing where like it's not an effort. It's not like, oh, we need to boycott this, or it's just like, I don't want to do that. It's just like you just get to a state of thinking where you're like, why would I want to abuse other creatures when there's an option not to? Or if there isn't, why don't I create one? Okay, next question. Would you date a vegan who fed their cat meat? That's a new one. A new twist on the would, because a lot of people ask me about dating non-vegans, and my thing on that is just like, nah, because you got to kiss them and stuff. If someone's got a cat, yeah, I probably would. If they were like, if I was really into them and they were into their cat, I'd try and encourage vegan cat food. If they were like touchy about that, some people are like, no, they can't have it, because you can get synthesized taurine and all that stuff. But I'd push for that. I'd want to, if I ended up living with them or something, I really don't like the smell of like meat, especially cat food. I don't think even non-vegans don't like the smell of cat food typically. You have to have pretty like bad sense of smell to be enjoying that. I'd want to create a system where I wasn't going to really like come into contact with it. I wouldn't have to, I wouldn't want to be feeding the cat. I wouldn't be putting money towards it. Definitely. I have fed cats cat food in the past where like housemates have had it and I've just ended up chipping in, but this is like quite a few years back. I don't think I'd do that anymore. I'd just be like, mate, you need another solution. So yeah, I would. I'd have to really like them though. It's one of those things where like you start, like you might get into a sexual relationship with them and like they're coming around yours or whatever, and then you finally go around theirs and they're like, yeah, I've got a cat. You're like, oh right, do you feed it vegan? And they're like, no. And then it's just like, oh, I can't go out with you anymore. I can't imagine that being the situation. It'd be a bit of a shit reason to dump someone, I think, because they've got a cat. That it's a bit gross, though, isn't it, buying dead animals just to feed one that you sort of own. And yeah, it's not really vegan, is it, to sort of be funding those industries? That's one that splits people though, and I'm not too like, I do care, but I can't be asked to argue about it, because some people will get it and some people won't, and some people will come around to it in time. But people are funny about their pets. Narcissus Jakub. I think this is this. She asked me quite a few questions. She's from Romania, I think. She seems lovely. Are you answering fewer questions lately? I hope I've said your name right, by the way. Jakub. Narciss. Did I call you Narcissus? Narciss Jakub. Are you answering fewer questions lately? No, it's just been a day. Chill out. And I'm doing them this way. So hello, Narciss. And then she's asked me another question straight after that. When is episode 2 coming out? So I've started making this vegan news thing. I'm going for quality rather than quantity. So they're probably going to be coming out like one a month, I would have thought. I work slowly, man. I spend a lot of time thinking like, oh, I need to say something original with this, because I don't want to just rehash opinions where everyone nods their head and goes, I've thought that before. I want to like give people epiphanies. And so I've worked really hard on episode 2. Although that said, I think it's going to be coming out, like probably this will come out after that's come out. So it's sort of irrelevant. Episode 2 I've been working on a lot, and it kind of evolved while I was working on it. It was meant to be about heroes and how we can call people terrorists, and based on like the dominant cultural narratives, and how propaganda works. And it sort of like evolved into like the ag laws, and also just looking at like people that and it's going to be split into 2 parts. So the next one that will be coming out after that will be quite a few weeks later, where it's looking more at community and media and who's like controlling those stories that create who's a hero. And the idea is I'm going to do 5 episodes of this new series for this first series. 5 episodes in the series, and there's like a real story arc, and I've already planned it out. So it's not really news, it's more sort of like a story made up of other people's footage with my voice over it to try and convey a message that has a bit of a story arc to it. Okay. And the first one was all about setting up the world, and just like, I didn't really want to include the word veganism in the first one apart from the title, and just have it so that anyone could watch it and just be like, oh my god, those Chinese people are eating dogs, you know, like just so that you can warm people up to the idea that you know, like get them talking about something before you sort of introduce veganism. So the idea is it should feel like watching a whole feature film by the time there's 5 of them, and it should be feature length. So that's episode 2. Yeah, I've had a few people, like, I tell people to fuck off because they're just like, hey, can you make, you know, you should make them like once a week, or you should do them every 3 days, and like just make them shorter and like put less time into them. And it's just like, this is my, like, I'm not doing this for anyone else in terms of like, I want to put a message out there, but this is like my art. This is sort of like my own personal project, and I'm like fucking crazy. I've got a vision with it, and I'm not interested in what you think. So just wait, little doggy, and you'll get fed. You know, it will happen. So appreciate your patience, but it'll be done when it's done. You can't rush a masterpiece. Cowspiracy is a vegan. This is the next question. This isn't just me talking. Cowspiracy is a vegan propaganda film, and none of it is true. Is this person a lost cause? Is any of what they're saying correct? I don't know who said that. Cowspiracy is a vegan propaganda film, and none of it is true. I think a lot of it is true. I've like double checked some of it, and a lot of it's factual. I've done a review of Cowspiracy with a mate. I'm going to be putting these all up as podcasts. He's not vegan, and it was really, and he works for like a green energy company, and they've started doing meat-free Mondays and stuff. So it's quite interesting talking with him about it, and him just going, oh my god, I didn't realise that, and I work for these people. And the whole film is just going around to these people who make money out of going, oh, we need to do something about climate change, and just going, oh, are you vegan? And they go, no. And you go, do you talk about that? No. Do you realise it's the biggest contributor to? No. Oh, yeah. And it's just that really awkward moment in all the interviews. And that's what makes Cowspiracy a great film. So it's not really about the fact that it's true or propaganda. It's just about that awkward moment where you just call people out for being a bit shit. And everyone's being a bit shit, even the people who are claiming that they're making a difference. I've only got one more left, so this isn't too bad. It's going to be under an hour. So yeah, don't worry. Conspiracy is Cowspiracy. It's called Cowspiracy. It's a less of a propaganda film of like blackfish and stuff, but there's nothing wrong with propaganda. We've got to get past this idea like there's propaganda on both sides, and you need to like, you're already taking in all the billboards and stuff, like, meat, eat some dead animals, and then like you need some other people just go, don't you like? Well, it's not even propaganda, but like I do it a bit, like just calling people udder suckers and stuff. It's just like with the agenda to like put people off it, rather than just saying, oh, you drink dairy, or it's the words we choose to use. And I think like the idea is you triangulate your own opinions, having heard both sides of the story. So watch Cowspiracy and then go watch a documentary on how global warming might not be real, and just come to your own conclusions based on like good evidence. But everything's propaganda, man. Like you can't get past the fact that pretty much everything is propaganda. Because as soon as you choose which part of the story to tell, or where to put the camera, or which questions to ask people, you're always going to be like, anyone who says they're not biased with their documentary making is fairly false. But if you want to watch something that aims to be as unbiased as possible, you've got to see Our Daily Bread. It's like a silent feature film on just like static shots of how food is made, and the whole thing is just like godlessly depressing. Like it leaves you cold. So check that out if you want like an example of very unbiased filmmaking. No music, nothing to try and manipulate you. Like obviously Cowspiracy's got a score and it's trying to make it like, it's got an agenda. But I think I've spoken to the guys who made that briefly when I started copying their film onto YouTube. And they're like, "Oh, can you take it down, please? Like we're trying to make money." And I was like, "You just want to make money?" And they're like, "No, it's because we were trying to get TV deals so more people see it." And they talked about it really honestly. And I think they just want people to see that film because they're terrified that humans are going to get to a point where we destroy the planet so much that, like I think most people would just be like, "Oh, it'd be all right in the end," because we've watched so many films now that we're like, "Oh, it'll always have a happy ending." And it's actually like if we keep making the wrong choices, we will destroy this planet to the point where we can't just bring it back to how it was. We'll just have destroyed it too much, and that's how they see it, and they're really worried that's going to happen. So it's propaganda, but their motivation is quite pure. I think they're really just. They don't want to. They're terrified that we're destroying the planet. They care about the next generation. Okay, I've just had another question while this is coming through. Great. That's going to make it longer. Okay, next question. Weird, but still veganism related question, I suppose. What kind of blender do you have and would you recommend it? I want to get a good one to incorporate more smoothies into my daily life, but the blender I use is a joke. And just imagining just like a whisk. You just have a whisk that you like strap to like an egg timer. And then you like some vibrating toothbrush you just put in a glass. How much of a joke? It's okay to have a blender that's a joke. The only thing is like planned obsolescence, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically where like a machine is designed to be cheaper on the basis it will break sooner, and people will be more likely to buy it because it's cheaper, but they'll have to buy another one sooner. So the companies actually make more money out of them. I think it's good if you've got the cash up front to go and buy like something with a lifetime guarantee. Although, something where you get it replaced if the parts fail on you, and like or like a 15-year guarantee. But you're looking probably at I think they're like $500, or you can spend a shitload of money on a blender, and at the end of the day, like, instead of making banana smoothies, you could just eat the bananas. And it'd probably be slightly better for you because you're getting more fibre and stuff. You don't get the direct hit of nutrients, but it's like a bit of a slower, like the sugar takes a little bit more time to get into your blood, so it's less of a peak in that, depending on what you want to do, So you can just eat food instead of blend it. But look, okay, you want to have a blender. You get some that like can blend so fast they can actually heat the stuff to turn it into soup if you want to like ramp it up to that sort of rotations per second, which it just gets hot, which I think is crazy. If you want those kind of features, personally, I just like, if you're raw, you don't really want that anyway. You'd be destroying the enzymes after however many Fahrenheit, Celsius, whatever. But that's an option on some. Some are really good where they'll get seeds to the point where they just become liquid. They're just like smooth, and that's kind of beautiful to have that. If you want to get all gourmet about it, I kind of like the bits in it though. I've never bought a decent blender. I use a mate's a lot. I go around a mate's house. He's got those magic bullets, and they're kind of nice because they're a lot easier to clean because the blades come out as part of like the lid of the mug, so the whole thing turns upside down, and then you drink out of it and you can wash it. and they're relatively cheap, like for the amount of parts you get. I think we're talking about like 90 quid. So like, I don't know, look it up, Magic Bullet, and they kind of got like a sexy design. They got this kind of phallic spaceship thing going on. They look pretty. You get a lot of different parts with them. And easy to clean is a big thing, I think. Juicers as well. Like, if I was going to buy another juicer, I'd be looking for one that's just easier to clean. Like, you want sort of glass and metal parts, rather than bits that just you're having to like bleach out in the sink every so often. So on Ask FM, there's a thing where it asks a different question. It asks like a default question to all the users once a day. So it's question of the day. And usually I ignore it, but as it feels semi-relevant, I'll answer it. Will humans ever live on another planet? And I think like maybe. What's interesting about that though, from a vegan point of view, is we might have to, because we just fuck this up so much. So okay, here's what we can take from like, let's create some sort of tedious sort of theme through all of these questions as a summary. You're gonna die one day. You were born, you've learned a bunch of stuff, you're trying to live the best life you can. Accept that you're going to die one day, and it could be sooner rather than later, so just like do your best in each moment. Accept that like everything is propaganda. Don't believe anything, you know, like if you watch something, just take what you can from it and get educated to formulate your own opinions rather than just repeat things. And spend a lot of money on a blender if you've got a lot of money, but if you haven't, just eat bananas, don't even blend them, whatever. And if you fancy someone who has a cat with meat, personally, I'd still bang them. That's a bit misogynistic to call it bang them, isn't it? Right, I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening. It's just over 50 minutes. I hope you're multitasking while you're listening to this. Or you're just like in a hammock and chilling out, or on a trampoline or something. It's just like a nice additional thing to have. But yeah, I hope that was useful to you. So I might do a few more of these as the questions sort of roll in. It's easier for me than typing. I'm kind of bored of typing now. I kind of like talking, and I think it allows you to hear my voice a bit, and my expressions and my intonations. So in case you just hear me as like me answering the question is like, no, I wouldn't, like in some Eric Cartman voice. If I'm coming across as angry, I'm sorry. It's just that's your fault for hearing that voice in your head, and it's got nothing to do with me. Okay, goodbye until next time. Bye 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 bye.